I would like to be able to say, look, you know, this is what's available. It's paid by public funds. It's supposed to be accessible to everyone. And here I am trying to gain access, and I can't. And there is no reason why I can't. It's mandated by public law, and the technology is available to be able to do it.
Why are they, let me read this. Why are they debating over the issue?
They feel that this is signing away our lives for the next 2 years, so to speak, until accessible buses are here.
Oh, I see.
And that we're agreeing to this, I guess, to this effort is, you know, even this doesn't solve the problem, and so the concern is that we're agreeing to this and not, you know, taking into the fact that down the line we need more service than this. And that by signing this we would maybe be agreeing to something other than that.
Well, I'd be happy to put in here that whereas in the opinion of Barry Goodman this is also a very token, inadequate attempt to serve the elderly and handicapped community, if you'd like, I'd be happy to put that in and sign it too.
See, this really doesn't matter a whole lot then. I mean, it's, you know,
it's not worth the paper.
It's not worth it. That's what I thought. So there's no sense even signing the thing.
I can't understand why.
Okay, I thought that your all's office wanted this thing.
Do we want to sign this, David?
I wanted to sign it.
You wanted it signed.
David
Maybe there is a ceremonial value in it.
Well, that's what I see. That's all it is. Damn it.
No.
You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want, but you must try and try, try and try.
Why can't you get on? Because there's steps on the bus and instead of a lift.
Why don't they have a lift?
Well, I have no idea why they don't have a lift. They give us many reasons. They do have some with lifts, though, but 80% of them are inoperable, and they're operating on fixed routes where there are very few people that are in wheelchairs. They go by complexes where there are, people living in wheelchairs, but they fail to realize that many people do not live in those. The vast majority.
The Coalition for Barrier-Free Living was initiated about 2.5 years ago, and our purpose was to work in Houston on eliminating architectural, attitudinal, and transportation barriers in the city of Houston. Since that time, our main thrust, I would say, or one of our main thrusts, has been working with the Office of Public Transportation towards attaining an accessible bus service in Houston. In December of this year, in '77, the city, without any warning, cut all buses except one that was running from Independence Hall to the University of Houston and downtown. The problem being then that, there was only, that bus held 3 people, so there was 3 spots serving the whole handicapped population in Houston, which according to 70 census figures is 96,000 people. So the coalition was tired of messing around. We had been promised too many things by the Office of Public Transportation, and Barry Goodman in particular. So we staged this demonstration, which took a little work, and we got several people downtown on September the 28th, which you will see a few. Our request here today is that the city really take a long and hard look at what they can do for the handicapped. In San Antonio, there's a door-to-door service. In Austin, there's the same type of transportation service.
What you are is curtailing experience. What you're doing to the handicapped individual without transportation is isolated in their living situation. And that by denying them the means to get to school, recreation, restaurants, things like that, you're not just, in essence, denying them the mobility, you're denying them a whole lifestyle that everyone else in society does have.
Handicapped people are looking at public transportation to open their horizons. They say all Houston buses should be equipped to handle wheelchairs, and curbs should be built for easy access. How do you get that point across to the powers that be when lack of transportation is such a problem? Speakers at this weekend's conference say it has been done to some extent in other areas by people with all types of handicaps banding together to create a political force. I'm Mary Ellen Conway, Eyewitness News.
Of the 45,000 students here at the University of Texas at Austin, approximately 250 are disabled, and around 30 are in wheelchairs. But it's not just wheelchairs that have to be accommodated. Blind students are among the disabled, too. A Braille campus map has been published to help them learn their way around. And work has begun to adapt elevator buttons for them. Responsibility for compliance with 504 rests with Ronald M. Brown, Vice President for Administrative Services.
So far, the regions have appropriated about $1,600,000 to carry out this part of the project. Section 504 asks us to have the campus primarily accessible by June of 1980, and we expect to have that happen. I think there are some parts of it that are going to be very difficult to resolve and are going to take some time for all of us to resolve.
But there are several vague areas, and this university is facing legal action in two of them. One involves the campus shuttle buses, which are contracted for from an outside service and for which all students pay a mandatory $12 a semester fee. The rides are then free, but the buses are not accessible to wheelchairs. Discussions with the university failed to resolve the shuttle bus issue, and 3 disabled students filed suit. Another case against the university involves a former graduate student, Walter Kamenish, who is deaf. As Dean of Students of the Texas School for the Deaf, he supervises nearly 200 children's education, and he was required to obtain a master's degree to keep his job. He enrolled in the University of Texas and had to hire and pay for his own sign language interpreter. Once again, money is the issue. How much did you spend on interpreters altogether?
I spent about $1,200 for 9 courses.
Why did you feel the university should pay for the interpreter?
Because now we have a law, or Section 504 of the VR Act, and also I don't mind paying the tuition and the fees, all this like a hearing student would. But it cost me extra to pay the interpreter out of my pocket.
Don't you think the annual cost of providing interpreters could be very expensive for a university?
Yes, but they spend a lot of money for people in wheelchairs, blind people, and other handicaps, but nothing for the deaf people.
Well, they say that ramps and curb cuts are permanent, but interpreters are an ongoing, steady, never-ending cost.
But I'm a first-class taxpayer. I expect to get some service from the University of Texas.
Handicap groups have been demanding for years that Metro equip buses on major thoroughfares with lifts for wheelchairs. The Coalition for Barrier-Free Living filed a lawsuit against Metro and went to court today to argue their case.
We believe that Metro has discriminated against people with disabilities by purchasing vehicles and that are not accessible to people with disabilities.
The court hearing was postponed, but before the group could get out of the courthouse, Metro called the news conference to make a major announcement.
Metro Board Chairman Bob Lanier is supporting a recommendation that will go to the full board later this month for the purchase of wheelchair lift equipment on all future bus purchases.
I'm just it's absolutely incredible. I mean, were hundreds of people who worked on this.
Metro admits it was a reversal in policy.
But I think it does show a willingness for us to examine various policies and decisions that we've made in the past and make changes when necessary.
The next witness is Mr. Robert C. Lanier, President of Landar Corporation and the Chairman of the Metropolitan Transit Authority of Harris County. Mr. Lanier.
Thank you, sir. I've worked in this transportation public service end of transportation business for the last 6 or 7 years. Before working at chairing the board at Metro, I chaired the State Highway Commission. We looked at this question of lifts and vans on Houston's Metropolitan Transit Authority. And we voted here a month or so ago to add lifts to all buses and the smaller vehicles are purchased as they're added to the fleet. And listening to the handicapped persons, there was another issue, it seemed to me, at stake, and that was that these persons who wanted to make their contribution, who wanted to fully participate in society, looked at the requirement that to take a van, at the absence of service on demand that one might get in a bus, as a sort of variation or extension of the old separate but equal doctrine. In other words, they resisted the notion that a group of our citizens could be separated from the rest of society and told, even if it was true, that these separated facilities are the equal of what the rest of society has, and they wanted to fully participate. And we came down on the side of what we thought was that larger value. It's my notion that at the heart of the American system is the inclusion process. It's the part of what's gone on during my lifetime that's made me the proudest as an American. And it's an area where, if we're going to spend some extra money, and I think these lifts will cost some extra money, I think the extra money in the main is justified. You spoke of Congressman Mickey Leland. There was a time in my lifetime when he could not have made his contribution. He could not even have voted in this state. And it's not just that he or other persons are allowed to contribute and have gainful employment, although I think that is important. It's also that there are people out there who could make wonderful contributions, as Congressman Leland did, that will benefit us all if they can, if they're allowed to make that contribution.
Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being late, but I think there's a wonderful irony to be observed. This is one of the only times, I believe, in my life that I've ever noticed that a person who was not disabled could not find a parking place. And so I frequently find wrong people, people who are not disabled blocking the disabled person's places, but today there was no parking place for anyone. You have a very good turnout here. I have, Mr. Chairman, I have presented already to the committee, have already sent to the committee a formal statement, and I will not duplicate those observations. I am very pleased the subcommittee has come to Houston and to Texas. We have been working for some time at the state level and also in our National Conference of State Legislatures to try to deal with problems disabled Americans face. In our state, we're very proud of some of the advances we've made. We're very frustrated by some of the attempts we've made that are still not quite there. But I think to suffice to say we have one of the most active communities and groups of advocates anywhere in the United States. And there's whatever successes we've been able to achieve are, of course, to their credit.
Houston has had a profound effect on the ADA. For decades, I've been proud of Houston's vision and commitment to the issue of rights for people with disabilities. Remember when, spurred on by Eleanor Tinsley, Houston became one of the first cities in the nation to include barrier-free access in its building code. Through the years, local companies like Houston Power and Lighting, Southwestern Bell have followed their lead and taken the initiative to enhance these efforts. And so when it comes to the ADA, Houstonians have real reason to have a strong sense of Texas pride. And of course, many other Texans have played leading roles in securing equal civil rights for the disabled, and no list is complete without Justin Dart and Lex Frieden, two that I mentioned before. And of course, we even include a guy from Dallas, Steve Bartlett. These three don't need any introduction. Justin served as chairman of my president's committee for the employment of people with disabilities. Lex as you all know, brought his expertise in the independent living movement from Houston to D.C. To head up the National Council on Disabilities. And as for Mayor Bartlett, a good guy, even though he's from Dallas. And I remember back in the fall of '89 when his House committee came to Houston to hold the very first ADA hearing outside D.C. More than 500 people came to testify in support of the legislation.
Each human being has an inalienable right and an inalienable responsibility to govern their own life, to participate in government of their society, and to be maximally productive in terms of quality of life for themselves and for all of their fellow humans.
The stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. The prairie sky is wide and high, deep in the heart of Texas. The sage in bloom is like perfume, deep in the heart of Texas. Reminds me of the one I love, deep in the heart of Texas. Coyotes wail along the trail, deep in the heart of Texas. The rabbits rush around the brush, deep in the heart of Texas. The cowboys cry, ki-yip-ki-yi, deep in the heart of Texas. The doggies bawl in the heart of Texas, deep in the heart